Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Spiritual Psychic TV and one of our first shows of 2021. Happy New Year to you all. I do hope you're all keeping safe and healthy, and best wishes for a healthy, safe and prosperous 2021, where we use the 2020 as a foundation era. We now build our superstructures above and beyond. And so it's great to have you here this evening. I think we've got about a dozen people with us already. We really do appreciate your love. And now there are lots of different ways that you can support this channel. You've done so wonderfully over the last 10 months, and we'd ask that you help us to continue to build this community on YouTube. So one of the first things you can do is make sure that you have a YouTube account and that you've signed in. That means, quite crucially, you can participate in the live chat and all of our shows, particularly the next hour, hour and a half. It's going to be very interactive. And if you want to participate in that live chat and engage with us in the studio, then make sure you log into YouTube and do that. The other thing you can do is you can give us the thumbs up. That computes with all the algorithms and robots in hyperspace, lets them know that we're producing content worthy of your attention and your energy. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can share this stream. Now, by subscribing to Spiritual Psychics TV, you're never going to miss any of the fantastic content that does pop up. Enable the notifications, make sure you've fully subscribed, and what you're going to do is you're then going to have the opportunity to see all of the wonderful shows and demonstrators, mediums, talkers, lecturers available. So please do that. And of course, the final thing you can do for us is you can think about sharing this stream. Now, in order to do that, you need to close the live chat window and then look for a little forward right arrow, usually up around the top right hand side of your screen. And by sharing that, what you can do is you can copy the link to this stream. Then you can pop that and paste it into a text message or a WhatsApp message, send it to your friends and family. If you are on Twitter, you can tweet it directly without losing the YouTube stream. Otherwise, if you're using something like Facebook or Instagram, why not put a picture up on Facebook or do a screenshot, share this with your friends, come out the show very quickly, paste that link in, share it in your wall, perhaps even tag a friend, let them know that you're watching Spiritual Psychics TV and this being spiritual with your host, Ashley Robinson. So good evening to you all, and a very warm welcome on this Friday, the 1st of January 2021. Now, at the moment, Richard, I can see the screens with name and text, but I can't see any of the other streams. So I'm just going to go into this otherwise blind, but that's not a problem. I know that Jim, you were one of the first people to join us this evening, and Jim says good evening. Well, good evening to you too, Jim. And Wendy Cleaton says good evening. Or Wendy, thank you for joining us. Cameron De Silva says good evening all. Good evening, Cameron. Welcome. Christine Davis says good evening. Hi, Christine. Julie Caswell, Happy New Year to you all. Absolutely. Thank you, Julie, for joining us tonight. And Mary Dixie, good evening, Ash and Richard. Hi there, Mary. Terry Wall, great ambassador for Spiritual Psychic TV, says, good evening, Ash, Richard, and everyone. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Terry. Thanks for all your hard work with the social media to support everyone that's doing this. Mr. and Mrs. B says, hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Good evening to you. And June Malkin. Good evening, June. To you and Dave and everyone at home. Debbie Marshall says, good evening, all. Hi there, Debbie. Alison Barton joins us. Happy New Year, everybody. Hi, Alison. Welcome to the show tonight. Philippa Cook says, Happy New Year to everybody. Hi, Philippa. Leslie Knight. Hi. Great to have you here, Leslie. Sylvia Freeston. Good evening, Sylvie. Good evening and happy and healthy 2021, she says. Hi there. And hi, Stace. She says, hey, Richard, Ashley, Happy New Year. Hi, Stace. Ethan Riley says, good evening. Good evening, Ethan. Great name. That's my son's name as well. Lovely to have you with us, Ethan. And Daniela says, good evening all and Happy New Year. Hiya, Daniela. And Diana Redmond. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Hiya, Diana. Great to have you with us this evening. Dynamic Spirit. That's Larry from Paul. Hello, Larry. And Dynamic Spirit, a fantastic ambassador for spiritualism. Some great online shows he's been doing every day. And Daddy Ray Robinson, live from my living room downstairs, where he's been looking after my boys as part of my childcare bubble. Kelly McEaton says, hello, Ash, Richard, and all that chat. Big love and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Kelly. Good evening, sir. Phil Shaw, wonderful trance medium. There's some lovely double demonstrations of him. Hoping to do a double demonstration of mediumship with me and transfiguration with Phil this year live on Spiritual Psychics TV. So watch out for that. Hopefully, the restrictions will continue to get loose as the virus starts to go away. We'll be able to do that live from your studio. Cameron De Silva. Hi, Ash. You have a great voice. You sound like you could be a sports commentator. Thanks, Cameron. Okay. And hello from Penny. I'm glad you said your name, Penny. I'm not sure how I'd pronounce. Is that Pluf? Pluf? Good evening to you. And Christine. Hi, Christine. She says, good evening, Ashley. Nadia says, hello and happy new year to you. Hello, Nadia. Nadia Liggett. Great. Richard's going to put the comments on automatic now. And for those joining us for the first or second time, special thank you to Richard James that does all this hard work to produce these shows for us, give us these opportunities to get involved and get stuck in. So I know that we're very much. For some reason I'm showing as using my son's account. It should show Natalie. Oh, hiya, Natalie. Well, you've also got a son called Ethan. Then what a small world. But no worries at all. Hello, Natalie. Welcome to the show. So, happy New Year. And I do hope it's going to be a happy new year. And we talked about affirmations, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? I believe it will be a happy new year. And I was saying to Richard, I've had a lovely Christmas, and it forced me to slow down. And actually, in the end, despite the anxiety and the pressure of not being able to get together in big groups of family, it's reminded me about the things that I sometimes take for granted. And I've been trying to finish every night by saying thank you. Thank you to the universe, to Mother, Father, God, or anyone else you wish to incite for the little things that we do take for granted. That I'm healthy right now. I have a roof over my head, and we've had some dinner together as a family. All of those things, absolutely incredible, and I'm grateful for them. At times, it's scary, isn't it, folks? With the virus and the rate of infection. I'm based down in South London. I was saying to Richard, I think there's about 1,000 people to every 100,000 at the moment catching and spreading the virus, and that is a scary thing because it's the not known, isn't it? And that's when we have to remember that serenity prayer, asking someone, and having a belief in something greater than ourselves. I call that collective divine energy, God, but having a belief in something greater than ourselves and saying, you know what, thank you. Thank you for these opportunities, but help me have the serenity to look at the things that are happening and control my reaction to the things that are happening, knowing that I can't always control the situation. But I've got opportunities to control my reaction and my behavior to it. And then I can focus on those things. I can have the courage to get through it, to overcome it. And that's where my spiritual work becomes even more important to me at that foundation. Those affirmations about being positive and thinking about how I control my attitude and my behavior, knowing that that will affect certainly the attitude of my children, my wife, other people around me, and hopefully to a certain extent, it will affect your attitudes and your behaviors. But I know that Julie says, I know she's had time to paint the wall. Yeah, for those that have been watching the show over the last year, yeah, we finally agreed on a on a colour. And my wife has done a fantastic job. I always said 15 years ago when I got married to my wife Claire that I would learn how to do things like paint a wall and decorate. And slowly but surely, she has the patience to teach me these things. But she's done a brilliant job of that and other little lockdown projects. Alison has picked up on that as well. I think we took a poll a couple of times on the show, Richard, didn't we? When people chose their favourite colour, we ended up going for something totally different, but it's gone down well. June having a little bit of a chuckle there. Yeah, Claire has done a good job. So if you are looking for a lockdown painter and decorator, please reach out to my wife. No, I'm joking. Um, good little advertising opportunity had had she been in that. I can come and finish Stacey as well if she wants. Is getting. Terry says it's a lovely colour. What a fantastic community. I mean, it's very bizarre. You know, I've got my computer set up from home, and I'm sort of looking out onto the main road, and I can't see anything other than your comments at the moment. So I don't even have that mirror effect of looking into a video. But I feel that warmth and that energy of this community. And you know, as a watcher, when I watch other shows on Spiritual Psychic TV, what a fantastic community this has been as people have come together. And I've just seen that wonderful gift of service. And as a spiritualist, we've often spoke about unconditional love. And how do you demonstrate that? Unconditional love. And people say, always, it's about deeds, it's about how you live your life, it's about service. And what I see consistently with this community is people just doing things for each other unconditionally, and it's incredible. So well done to you all. You've all got through, helped me get through the last several last months, and we'll all be there for each other as we come back out of this. And there is some good news. You know, we've got vaccinations on the way to protect our most vulnerable, and regardless of all the hype in the media, those are the important things. Onwards, upwards, forwards. Terry's saying, Rich, we need to change the fan page link. If you are on Facebook, do find the group, the Spiritual Psychics TV fan page. Terry or I can let you into that. It's a place on Facebook where we try and share all the links. I say we, it's for predominantly Terry. She does a brilliant job. Selfishly, when I'm on, I remember to do it, but I do try and approve comments and appropriates as they come in. So thanks, Nadia. And Heidi Spicer saying hello there as well. Welcome, Heidi. So what I wanted to do a little bit tonight was think about the last 10 months and think about the opportunities we've had with these shows. I think I must be approaching maybe 20, 21 shows now, Richard, the opportunities you've given me to do this. And we've taken people on a bit of a journey. I've taken you on a journey with me as I've explored and developed and evolved my own sort of spiritualist and spiritual understanding. But I thought we'd try and keep it nice and interactive tonight. We'll see how much energy people have got. We don't have to go the full 90 minutes if people don't want to. What I thought I'd do is I'd ask a couple of questions and we'd see how far we'd get with the questions, and people can in the live chat give their answers, and then I'm going to give my answer, and it might send us off in different directions like a spiritual tree. We would splinter off. So one of the first things I wanted to ask then as a question was a question about the Fox sisters. Now the Fox sisters are very important, and when I spoke about the history of spiritualism, I spoke a little bit about the Fox sisters. So I wondered, and I know Julie Castle definitely will, because I learned a lot of this stuff from her, one of her workshops. But what date every year in spiritualism is our official birthday? So I've already given a clue there about the Fox sisters. And let's see if anyone in the live chat can give us any close. So let's look for a day, a month, and if anyone knows the year when we're talking about the Fox sisters, and particularly, I'll give people a few more clues to see what numbers might come in. So Cameron says full of energy, which is lovely. So we're going to the 1800s with the Fox sisters, and it was in New York State that the Fox sisters had a go. Oh, is that Mary? Is she the first one, Richard? That's popped up there. 31st of March. Yeah, the official birthday of spiritualism, because it was the 31st of March in 1848. The Fox sisters made a breakthrough in their attempt to contact spirit, who was communicating with them. And there's some fantastic stuff you can research on the internet there about the Fox sisters. And you imagine how difficult that was to detect an intelligence energy behind the knockings and the rappings on a wall, and then work with that energy. Not only recognize its intelligence, work with it to a point that you could start to spell out alphabetic. You know, for those of us that have used a Ouija board, we know how long it can take with 26 characters. But imagine one knock for yes and two for no, and trying to work out who it was. So yeah, lots of you are starting to get there right. Yeah, 31st of March, 1848. And the official birthday of spiritualism, which makes spiritualism in itself relatively modern, and it continues to evolve. Heidi says she's just going to copy Terry's answer then. So when we talk about spiritualism, and some of you that can do basic maths could give me an idea then. So I'm saying it's still relatively modern. How old is spiritualism then? I mean, I use that term quite a lot. I talk about being a spiritualist medium, being very proud about that. So yeah, either quickly work it out in your head or just give me an idea. How old do we think that spiritualism as a way of life and religion is? Any ideas? I wonder. I'm just going to take some water actually. I don't know if any answers have come up yet, but we are talking about over 170 years of mediumship in the sense of modern spiritualism. Of course, we could go back hundreds of years and perhaps even thousands of years to talk about people that would have understood an intelligence and an energy from ancestors and guides and loved ones. Yeah, Cameron De Silva there, 172 years. I think that's absolutely bang on. So still modern, still old. I don't think there's any of our viewers that cool. And 9 months, look at that, incredible. You are now the top of the class when it comes to the mentally horrific. Larry talks about 208. As I say, the point is, although spiritualism is modern in that sense, 172 years old, because of the Fox sisters, actually, as we go back through time, we see that there's almost always been some type of understanding. Now, earlier on, when I was talking about the Serenity Prayer, I was saying, do you believe in something greater than yourself? Well, I certainly do. And I talk about God as a collective sense for all of that intelligent energy. But if you look through time, the basic concept of religion, which looks like a human made thing, there's almost always been a God or gods, people that have recognized as something greater than themselves, a force or an energy. What an incredible thing. And the ability to then be steered and guided by loved ones, friends, family, guides, guardian angels, coaches, inspirers, all these different words to describe it. And there's a show on Alternative Fridays which talks about the origins of the ancients, and you can go back thousands of years to see that there was an understanding of this energy uh, of an understanding of a life after death, and certainly in that modern language about how we talk about it. Um, what a wonderful thing. What a wonderful thing to be alive in 2021 with that understanding. Yes, Julie, the Bible is indeed full of spiritual communication. Jesus as a great healer, as someone able to bring forward those messages. You know, even modern religions, Catholicism, Church of England, to talk about their saints and the inspiration that they've had from those. For me, at a collective level, that's all about evidence of a life after their life, a life from heaven, a life after that change we call death, and some great opportunities. We spoke about Hydesville. We spoke about the Fox sisters. Last show I did. Good evening, Pamela. Last show I did with my mum and dad, we spoke about the principles in Wimbledon Spiritualist Church, the principles that make up the foundations for spiritualism. But there's 7 principles that we spoke about in some of the spiritualist organizations. And I wondered if anyone knows the American equivalent. So this was a question that Ralph Steadman put to me a little while ago, and I had to go off and go to Origins of the Ancients has been cancelled. Have I got that wrong there, Richard? Okay, quite possibly, folks. I've lost Richard. Okay. Okay, bum steer from me there, folks. Okay. Bagita will be back doing another show. So apologies for that bum steer, but all of it's available on YouTube. So if you subscribed, do go out and check some of that. But Origins of the Ancients, that was the point I was making there. So anyone come up with any of the American equivalent of spiritualist or spiritualism principles? So we did a whole show on Women and Spiritualist Church principles 2 weeks ago. Anyone know any of the American equivalent? So Nostradamus, we're just talking about there at the time. Again, numbers. Does anyone know the numbers? So we might just skip over that. But there are nine. There are nine principles in American spiritualism, some of the larger organizations. And really, I just wanted to pick up on that point we did 2 weeks ago. Is it's about your own principles, isn't it? Your own concept of what it means to be spiritual. I've had this fantastic opportunity to talk to all of you. We spoke about the things that are my spiritualism. Cameron, the question was, what are the equivalent of the British 6 or 7 principles? And we're talking about the nine principles of American spiritualism. But the point I wanted to make, Cameron and folks, was that actually it's about us, isn't it? It's about what makes sense to us. It's about what we hear. And maybe we hear it in this life for the first time, where it rings true and it makes absolute sense to us. It's good to have you on, Gary Walker. And for those of you that have that gift to send out absent healing, please do continue to think about Gary and his wife, who would appreciate our love, light, and healing at the moment. Sorry to drop that in, Gary. I saw your name flash up there, and I know that I'm sending some healing. So the principles then form that foundation of what it is for us and on how we sort of live our lives, what it means to be. And I really enjoyed doing that show with my mum and dad. And actually, off the back of that, we've decided, my mum and I, that we're going to try and do some more philosophy, more of a workshop, more of a training opportunity via Spiritual Psychics TV. So this year, watch out for a training academy event for some of the VIPs. And it's a good opportunity, Richard, if you can bring up your link to the VIPs. But one of the ways you can support the studio is by becoming a VIP, a patron of Spiritual Psychic TV, and by donating, I think it's about £1.50 a month towards the studio and the investment into everything that goes into to making the show. Rosie's having some problems with her internet. Sorry to hear that, Rosie. I'll hope that you sort that out. But thanks for joining us. Okay, so the next thing I was going to talk about then, principles being our foundation, finding out, you're welcome, Gary, finding out what makes sense to us. I spoke a lot about my own mediumship. I've spoke about myself as a clairvoyant, and clairvoyant certainly a term you hear a lot, as you do hear the word mediumship. I think it's every Saturday night, ordinarily, Richard, we have mediumship available to people. But I wanted to go through some of the other clairs, not my wife Claire, but some of the other clairs, and see if anyone is aware of any others. So there's a handful. Clairvoyant or clairvoyant is one of the ones we've heard. There is clarifaction and clairaudient, and I want to see if anyone know any of the others or what they mean, because they're all about different senses and how we use our senses. Thinking about the Fox sisters, understanding the knockings, the rappings, the tappings, and as mediums, how we use our body like a canvas, a blank canvas, and a palette, a medium between this world and the spirit world. And there is the gift of being able to sense psychic tastes. That was the clairs I was talking about there. And the other one was there, the gift of being able to sense psychic smells. So if I'm pronouncing that right, clairgustance and clarification, the smell and taste. And again, as a medium, I can be overwhelmed sometimes with my senses. I can have tastes and then clairsentient, sending, clairaudient, hearing. I think that the French interpretation of clair is the sense of seeing, and the idea of what can you see or to hear, how you listen, feel, taste, smell, and incredible how spirit can influence us in that way and give us evidence of their life after life. Okay, so the other thing we spoke a little bit about on this show, and thanks, folks. The fact you're all engaging, I hope, is interesting. We got more than a couple of people, by the looks of it, still playing this game. We spoke about physical mediumship, and we've spoke about physical sides of mediumship. So, as a medium, I'm here between this world and the spirit world. I'm using all of my clairs and surrendering my body for that sense, surrendering myself to the will of the communicator via my guides. And there are different bits and pieces that can happen, and that's part of me giving my mediumship or my message. But the word I want to introduce is apport. What is an apport? What do people think that could be? So Stacey says Andrew Jackson Davis was there. Okay, now hi Julie. Sorry, some of it is chat. I'm trying to flick between your questions and answers. Claire, French for clear. Yes, thank you, Rose. I knew an oracle, an ambassador like you would know the exact answer. But yeah, all of the different senses. So Rosie, I know you'll definitely know the answer to this. Then, what is an occult? We often hear this thing. Some people might use the word gift, or a gift from spirit. And just while we're waiting to see if anyone's got a good description of a port, I'll tell you a story which always used to like hearing at Christmas. Julie says she could always smell spirit. And I've said that a few times actually when people have come through. I can smell an aftershave perhaps, or a smell of tobacco where they influence me. They still attach onto those things. Yes, Wendy, great answer. A material object. So yeah, a physical object of any kind which a medium produces out of thin air is the result of materialization. Now, so often involve, yes, Larry, absolutely, physical objects, and often mediums would claim that they were providing their energy or for that. Also, spirit have been known to produce these things themselves. It takes an incredible amount of energy to produce it. I've never physically witnessed it myself, but certainly seen lots of evidence of it being done. But the story I wanted to share with you, which I used to hear a lot, always at Christmas, because that's nice. Look, National Spiritual Psychic Association, or Spiritual Association, added 2 principles to them in 1944. Good bit of research there, Stace. This story then I used to hear was about spirits taking presents that spiritualists would gather and put by a tree. I think it was in a church. Anyone, my dad will definitely know because my dad used to paraphrase this story. But spirit would then take those presents and deliver them to children in need. And certainly for all the presents that were donated and put under the tree, there was evidence to suggest that they would go, they would disappear. And I do believe that spirit found a home for those presents to go to. And I remember saying to my dad, have you ever sort of witnessed and seen these stories? And one of my favorite stories was in a physical circle where spirit produced a smoking cigar, much to the wow and gasping of the people in the room that were said how surprised they were to see this smoking cigar. And I believe that the spirit guide at the time said, if you're surprised, just imagine how surprised the guy was that was smoking it when I borrowed it from him. And I think that's a lovely story, and the opportunity in the right circumstances for spirit to move things. Now, we all speak about energy, don't we? We speak about energy all the time. And we know from a very basic understanding of atoms that energy can be in one place and another place at exactly the same time and be in constant communication with each other. And I think the spirit world behaves to a divine set of laws that don't necessarily interpret for us in our third dimensional state on Earth, and actually the ability to move things, to produce things. These are ports. I don't know who it was. I won't mention their name, and if I did remember, but someone said they'd found a little tin soldier as an apport. We've heard about coins and other types of things. So Stace is saying she asked Google. You could have claimed to have been the oracle there, Stace. But that's good. So some good answers there. Okay, so Julie Caswell, I know knows this for sure, and a few of you other mediums. But people talk about psychic mediums or psychic gifts and spiritual mediums or spiritualist mediums, spiritual gifts. So what do people think the difference between psychic and spiritualist gifts, mediums are? Anyone got any good explanations for the difference between psychic and spiritual? Lots of people create their own labels, I suppose, and I think that's absolutely right. People should be comfortable in labeling themselves. So I'm very proud to call myself a spiritualist medium. Doesn't mean that I don't work psychic. Sometimes I do work at a psychic level. What's the difference? How do you know if someone is working as a psychic or as a spiritualist? For those that have ever seen me demonstrate my mediumship, I've often given a little explanation of what I think my job is as a spiritualist medium. Stace says she knows a lot about history of spiritualism. She's educating herself with my help. That's lovely, Stace. Thank you. So yeah, if anyone, Rose says none. I think you're answering the questions. No difference between psychic and spiritualist. Yeah, for gifts, you've given me clarification for that. And actually, Rose, a great example of a medium who can work in that energy. I call her the Queen of the Cards, which was a nickname my grandfather had for her. She can give wonderful evidence of life after death using a set of playing cards. So, actually, a great example of how it can all come from the same energy. Phil Shaw says psychic is disconnected from spirit communication. And certainly, that was how I've always understood. Reading the person's energy is perhaps psychic. The difference, between that for me as a spiritualist medium, I always say my job is to prove life after death. When I'm working as a spiritualist medium, I'm looking for evidence of life after death, and I want to prove life after death. As a psychic, I'm perhaps working with energy, but as Rose said, from an energy point of view, I suppose they are exactly the same. A spiritual gift is demonstrated through a connection to a spirit communicator, a spiritual being, whereas a psychic gift is often associated with a connection to another human being or to a force or to a nature. And of course, you could argue that force in itself is energy, is therefore part of the spirit world. So Larry says psychic direct from the sitter, one-to-one, spiritual involves the info from a third party. Yeah, I think that's also a lovely explanation. For me, I'm not always conscious that I'm shifting between the two, other than obviously when I'm working with a spiritual communicator, I know I'm working as a spiritualist medium because I've got that evidence of the communicator. Wendy says that spirit is an attunement to guide to receive message. Yeah, another lovely way of explaining it, and I would agree with that. Sometimes working more at a psychic level, it's not necessarily reading the person, but reading the situation. Perhaps you're picking up on the energy of the cards or the room. Certainly psychic intuition, that idea of working with energy. But yeah, spiritual gifts, for me, the subtle difference is when we're working as a spiritualist medium in particular, that it's a connection to a spirit communicator, a guide or a loved one. And working psychically, it's about gifts and mediumship associated with connection to other human beings, face to face or nature. So some lovely explanations there, folks. Right. So moving us on there, Julie says, yeah, we're all spirit. Absolutely. And I talk about this world and the spirit world. Yeah, agree with that. Now, a term that some of you may have come across, some of you may have not, powerhouse. Anyone know what a powerhouse is in terms of spiritualism, spiritual world? It's a term that I once heard in Circle. Rose, all valid and correct answers. I do respect Rose an awful lot. Very much a honorary parent to me, been around my entire life, and a lot of learning from you, Rose. Thank you for that. Powerhouse, then. So, who knows what a powerhouse is in terms of the spiritual or spiritualist world? Say, I first come across the term in Circle. And I've heard it a couple of times since, and I'd be interested to know, for those of you that have an understanding of what a powerhouse is or could be, whether or not you believe it's necessarily true. So let's see. I wonder what people might say. Being devil's advocate, before we answer this fully, I believe that people can be a powerhouse. Doesn't necessarily mean a role where you can only put on one hat. As we're talking about energy here, and we're talking about perhaps the powerhouse behind the energy or a contribution towards that energy. So I haven't seen any answers come up yet, but a person who may or may not have other spiritual gifts, who is able to generate spiritual energy so that a medium's powers are enhanced. So Larry says someone who gives off energy, usually without receiving much in circles. Yeah, Larry, lovely explanation there. And I should have said, for those of you that haven't watched the show at all, I base my spiritualist philosophy on everything I've learned over the last sort of 38 years, the education environment I've had. But a big inspirer for me is a guy called Ralph A. Steadman, Mr. Ralph Steadman, who continues to inspire me now from the spirit world. And Ralph, and what I call affectionately his committee are people that continue to influence me. And the committee, I imagine, are all these different guides from different eras, from different backgrounds and cultures that kind of sit around this equivalent of a boardroom table in heaven, where collectively they help influence and inspire me. So when we're talking about powerhouses, then yeah, Rose says we used to call them batteries. My sister used to sometimes say she was a psychic dud. And even if you believe you have no such thing as a gift, and that in itself is a different question, you can always provide energy. You can provide a contribution. Sometimes that is just love, understanding. It's about not having those barriers. But yes, someone who can generate that energy, perhaps enhance the medium working, certainly in more physical circles, physical scenarios. I've known that other mediums can act as a powerhouse to generate or enhance for the medium that's working, to all work around that energy. Larry says not bad for third glass of wine. Yeah, yeah, that's a different type of spirit you're mixing with your powerhouse there, Larry. But happy New Year to you, mate. You enjoy. Mary says yes, Rose, powerhouse through me. And obviously, I did sit in Mary's circle before I started working as a medium. It was back when I was sitting with Jill Hay that I first heard the term powerhouse. Battery, certainly. And Ralph Steadman spoke about this. It's quite an old-fashioned term, I believe, something he heard quite a lot about in the 70s around the physical circles. Powerhouse is the soul. That's nice, Stace. Okay, so how many bodies do human beings have? So think about us in the now as a human being, and how many bodies do we have? That's the question I want to ask, because throughout the last 10 months, we've spoke about the difference between a corpse and a human being. We've spoke about what actually happens during communication, but certainly based on my understanding of the world. Glad you're learning a lot, Gary. That's what we're trying to do with this show as well, and I'm taking advancement myself. But there are physical bodies. I'm giving you one clue of the four. I'm in mine now. It's taken a bit of punishment, a bit of a beer and pie tank. Phil, yeah, you've got four. That's based on my understanding, my belief too. So on the four bodies, and I've already said one of them is our physical body, our vessel for this personality, this consciousness. What are the other three, some may say more subtle bodies then? Anyone like to make any suggestions? Because I believe that certainly the four are all layered together like an onion. They're not necessarily separate. It's all parts of the same thing. But within that physical body, I do believe there are three slightly more subtle. So Phil's on the board tonight: physical, astral, mental, and spiritual. Well, I would agree with those words. And actually, if we get out the dictionary and the thesaurus, we can come across slightly different understandings of that. I think about the three more subtle bodies as emotional, mental, and spiritual. Julie's wearing all of her bodies. Pleased to do that. We do hear of that out of body experiences. Stace says about the spiritual body, mental body, universal. Yeah, also a nice explanation of it. And the words I'm using, as I say, if we get out of thesaurus, we can find different words. Oh, good, Gary. Etheric body. The emotional, the mental, the spiritual. That's the four bodies. Have I always understood them, and it's quite important to me in my understanding of our incarnation. But yeah, some lovely words. And although I've given you the four words that I can associate with, it's about what makes sense to you. And I think that people are often hitting the same words here, talking about exactly the same type of stuff, recognizing that subtle difference to the various component parts that make us up as a human being. So based on that, then there are layers within the aura of the human being. Now, so we haven't gone too deep into the aura. Perhaps that's a show worth exploring in the future. But we've spoke about different aspects of the aura, and we've spoke a couple of times about layers. And I wondered if anyone has any thoughts about layers. Now, I never understood the word layer in the same way I understood the word interface, an interface between the bodies. Now, I spoke to Ralph Steadman at some length this, and I said, well, if you've got these four bodies, how do they interface with each other? How does it all kind of join together? And he spoke about seven. The four bodies, and there's three interfaces between them, which makes up these seven layers. Now, this question I was asking Ralph came about after the second failed pregnancy that my wife and I had gone through. And I was really keen to understand at what point human incarnation became a human being. Was it at the moment of conception? Was it only when the heart started beating? And it was through that conversation I got onto this four bodies and the three interfaces between them. And that for me was an understanding then of the aura. How many layers are there in the aura of the human being? Okay, well, there's four bodies and there's three layers. The layers interface, it's how they communicate and connect with each other. And actually, if that's the process of incarnation, the process of how we get to that point, then I suppose our life after death, that change we go through called death, there has to be a bit of a dismantling of those interfaces. But we'll get onto that a bit more later. So certainly the way I understand it, four bodies with three layers making up seven in total, the four bodies and the three interfaces before them. So we spoke about spirit world and incarnations. I now want to then ask, so scientifically, and I use the word there, scientifically there, what is the definition of heaven? So religiously, there are lots of different descriptions of heaven or the afterlife or the spirit world. But scientifically, what is the definition of heaven? And the reason I say scientifically, Ralph took me on this journey where Ralph Steadman said to me, you know, and I've mentioned this a few times on the show, once upon a time, there was a person that represented religion and a person that represented science, and they were absolutely intertwined together. And then at some point, religion and science looked each other in the eyes and said, oh, I'm not sure I agree with that. And they went back to back and they kept walking away from each other. And over the last probably, 2,000 years, if not longer, religion and science moved apart. And there are lots of people that said, oh, there's an absolute divide there between religion over here and science over here. But Ralph said to me that he believed if he spoke about the concepts of religion and science walking around not in a lateral way, but in a global way. Let's take planet Earth. As we come round, religion and science get to a point where they were halfway round the world, and they'd never been so far apart. But as they continued on their journey and their evolution, there became a point as the world came back together. Religion and science thought that had been going off in opposite directions, only to reunite. And Ralph used to say that certainly around 2012, he felt there was this exciting period of time where religion and science were coming quite close together. So Phil's asked Ashore about the auric layers. They do have some names. That's the answer to your question, Phil. Maybe we'll come to that a bit later on. But any definitions of heaven, any scientific definitions of heaven, or any spiritual thoughts of what is heaven? How do you describe heaven to your friends? Okay. I don't see any answers jumping at the moment. So for me, and this is based on my learning from Ralph and my continued inspiration from a spirit world now, scientifically speaking, then heaven is a place and level of frequency of pure thought, of pure energy. So heaven is a frequency of pure thought. Now, breaking that down, frequency, always understand like a radio. And for me, the frequency is all about levels of things vibrating. There are things we can see with our eyes, and there are things we can't. Our eyes are only capable of understanding certain things that vibrate at a particular speed. Now, from a frequency, I always think of frequency as higher. And I actually think that's why instinctively I look up for heaven, because I think about heaven as a higher frequency. But it's a frequency, a vibration of pure thought. What's pure thought? Well, that's where I close my eyes and I think about what I'm going to do tomorrow or what I had for dinner this evening. And it's that concept of pure thought, what happens in the mind's eye. And I believe that heaven is this place of pure thought. Now, you could call that energy pure love, divine, the force. That's what I believe. Now, Phil says heaven is disembodied state of being that doesn't depend on physical matter or parameters for existence. Yeah, quite a nice scientific explanation as well there, Phil. But yeah, frequency of pure thought, of pure love. Now, Wendy says science would define it as a space, possibly. Yeah, I think that's a nice answer. And the reason for asking this question tonight, I'm really interested in seeing other people's sort of thoughts and opinions on this. So Stace says the white light that occurs in the brain during the process of dying, yeah, heading towards the white light, that place of pure energy. Rose says you could say we are pure energy, just slower. Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps as we have those interfaces of our physical body in the third dimension, it's just that we are vibrating a little bit slower. Stay says there are, for scientifically, heaven isn't real; it's a psychological phenomenon. I think there are certainly scientists that would say that. But I imagine if you got those same scientists together and you ask them something like, "Is the human body made of atoms?" they'd probably say something like, "Yes, everything is made of atoms." And if you say to a scientist, "Can you destroy energy?" most scientists would say you can't destroy energy. You can change it. You can transform it, but you can't destroy energy. So where does the energy go once you've finished with your body? Now, we spoke about the difference, haven't we, between a human being and a corpse. And I've said that I think the difference between a human being and a corpse, minus those bodies, you've got rid of the vessel, it's your consciousness, your personality. And if that personality is energy, and energy cannot be destroyed, your physical body might be buried and it might rot in a grave, it could be cremated and buried, then actually what you're left with is this consciousness. Where does the consciousness go? So consciousness is thought. It goes to a place of pure thought. I call that place heaven. Now, Julie says, my dad has told us via the spirit box he is in heaven. And I like that word, heaven. For me, it just sits comfortably. I often refer to it as well as the spirit world or the afterlife. But heaven for me is the place I'm comfortable with using. And whatever world you want to call it, utopia, paradise, I think that place is there, ready for us, a place of pure thoughts, of pure love. Okay. So we've said what is heaven. Next question is, where is heaven? So Wendy says scientists recognize that energy exists everywhere. Yeah, absolutely, Wendy. And that's why I think that heaven is that place of pure thought. Terry says heaven to me is a dimension of the highest energy. Yes, well, absolutely. So that's a nice answer. If we were saying scientifically, where is heaven? That's pretty cool. Rose says that's what I meant, Ash. We are energy now. Yep. I was agreeing with you, Rosie. That's lovely. So we've all had a bit of a conversation then about what is heaven. Where is heaven? Where is it? We've spoke about the different frequency. We spoke about vibrations. I've spoke about the fact that I think it's slightly higher. Stace says, my guide didn't like my explanation. He just snorted in my ear. Well, I thought it was good. And it's all about understanding, isn't it, Stace? Scientifically, then, if we're talking or trying to describe heaven, Ralph, who often brought religion and science very close together with metaphysics, said heaven is towards the top of the vibrational frequencies in our dimension. So when people think of heaven as being up, They are partially right, although the up is in frequency level rather than a level of physical height. So I think that reinforces a lot of what people we have described. And Phil has actually asked Julie whether or not he has described heaven. That's a good follow-up question. So yeah, Julie says we asked that, Phil, and they tell us it's love. There we go. I like that. It kind of agrees with what I was saying about pure fault and unconditional love, which is very, very nice. And Ralph, yeah, went on to sort of take to me, yes, it's vibrational frequencies within our dimension. That's why often people think about heaven as up. It's up in frequency levels rather than physical height. Stace says heaven is anywhere your physical being is at most peaceful and happiest, I believe. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we don't have that physical body as a vessel, but often the communicators come through. That's exactly the way they present themselves to me with their body. That's how they were comfortable. It's what carried their personality and their consciousness. Christine said, I feel it's not far from us. Yeah. And I'd argue that heaven is all around us. It's not necessarily up physically. It is, yes, Julie, agree. Heaven is everywhere, and it's the frequency that is up. Rose says, lovely wise, Ralph. Oh, yes, an incredible guy. And I learned a lot from him while I was alive. And I feel honoured that I'm one of the people that he continues to work with from heaven. He says, I've got great potential. And while I'm listening, him and the guides, that executive committee, I love doing this. And I love this platform. And I said to Richard, you know, if I had at least half a dozen people that are interested in some of the stuff, it'd be great to get together and talk a bit more about it, which is pretty cool. And thank you, friends, for giving us the opportunity to show. Okay. Gary says a place without sin or fret. You know, I quite like that. I mean, I imagine that the personality doesn't change immediately. So if you're the type of person that was a little bit naughty and a little bit cheeky, that some of that personality goes with you, but you probably end up creating a bit of a prison of your own making as opposed to a physical printing. Okay, good. Okay. Kirlian. Anyone heard of Kirlian photographs? And I think I'm pronouncing that right. Kirlian photographs. Anyone know anything about Kirlian photographs, and what do they show? I've been actually, for people that know a lot about this, I've been trying to buy a camera that can capture this for a while, because what these cameras claim to do is to show the human energy system, and in particular the aura. June says parallel existence on a higher frequency, heart's radio. Yeah, lovely, June. So yeah, photographing Europe. Yeah, absolutely, Phil. Kirlian photography is human energy system, in particular the aura. Yes, Rose, I would agree with that too. And I've seen these in action. I had a photograph taken, I think, at one of our spiritual psychic weekends, and one of the interesting things for me, for people that see aura quite clearly, my mum is one of those people. I said to my mum, I'd like you to read and see my aura at the same time I have a photograph, because I'd be really interested to see if what the photograph captures is the same thing that you capture. Of course, as any medium, the eye of the beholder, I suppose, is the interpretation of that. But what I found when I did have my photograph taken, it wasn't too far off exactly what my mum was picking up from energy, as Mary just says there, because it's recording the energy around us. And I've seen this done with hands as well, and healing hands. And I saw something on the internet with a video where a spiritual healer was performing healing, and you could see the energy changing as being picked up on this this camera. Really quite incredible thing. Worth googling it for those of you that like doing your research. Have a look into that. So it's Kirlian, spelt Kirlian, Kirlian photography. Okay, so we spoke just then about healing, and you might have heard within the philosophy realms alternative therapy. So what alternative therapy philosophy does, such as a photo proof. So this was something that Ralph said. We're talking about alternative therapies, we're talking about healing, and he spoke about acupuncture. And he's talking about the meridians and the fact that lines of energy in the physical body. So alternative therapy, even massage to a certain extent, you know, and needles, acupuncture, things that I've both had. It's all about that lines of energy within the physical body. And you think about the photography, capturing these lines of energy and the colors, all quite incredible. And it all, for me, confirms this thought I have around our physical bodies, the interfaces between them, and what happens in our incarnation as a human being, and what happens in that life after life. Okay, so psychometry, Ribble reading are two specific examples of what spiritual gift. Now, I don't think we've got Shirley on the show tonight, Shirley Monaco, Shirley Brown. Shirley does a lot of psychometry at church. Certainly pre-COVID, you'd give her a piece of your jewelry of bits and pieces. So what do people know about psychometry and ribbon reading? What are these examples of? Now, Kelly McKeaton says, I crossed over once and felt a tremendously high vibration. I travelled quickly through a tunnel of light, came out the other side. I was in the top corner looking down before being dragged back. Well, Kelly, thank you for sharing that experience. We spoke about out-of-body experiences, and this reminds me also of a near-death experience, this concept of going through a tunnel towards light. Lots of people that have felt that out-of-body experience or a near-death experience being dragged back. So thank you for sharing that, Kelly. Terry says she's having sound healing on Sunday. Never had healing therapy before. Great. And I think a lot of opening our mind to the art of the possible is also a big part of exploring what healing properties the universe has for us. But in terms of the two things I've spoke about, again, going back to the clairs, it's clairsentience. It's that sense of feeling the energy, understanding the lines of it. So how can then a psychometrist give a reading of a ring or a bunch of keys? So I mentioned my good friend Shirley there that does this so instinctively and naturally, often lacking in confidence, which is not true at all. She's very clever and very talented at doing this. But what is it they're doing? What are people doing with those objects? Phil says, picking up on its past history, yeah, using psychic energy. Well, Ralph gave me this definition, which I've written down here, which is that they are sensing the fine, subtle body energies which have penetrated the coarser energies of the physical objects. Now, I often used to think that spiritual philosophy with Ralph was like going to school, and I had to get him to break this down for me. And what he basically said is, you pick up this ring. He said, when you hold this ring, there's a bit of you, your imprint, your energy, which is transferred. And that, in fact, look, Stacey using the same word. I love psychometry. It's really energy that has been transferred onto or into objects, other things that can hold energy, like photos, water, jewelry, furniture, even buildings. Yeah, absolutely, Stace. And that's what Ralph said. It's about body energies which have penetrated the coarser energies of the physical objects. I also believe that the objects themselves being made of atoms, the atoms being broken down into particles of intelligent energy. So sorry for coughing online, folks. It's this idea that the object itself contains intelligent bits of energy, and perhaps the object itself can speak to you, for want of a better words. But yeah, absolutely. James says he's heard of Kirlian photography, as Sylvia often spoke about it. Yeah, so some great evidence on there for sure. Right. So for some of you spiritual people, I'm going to say that Phil Shaw definitely can't answer this one. And some of you others that would know the answer. But anyone know what's at Stansted apart from the airport? So what is at Stansted in spiritualist terms? Why would I talk about Stansted? Anyone know what's there? Give you a couple of clues. It's a headquarters for something. Really dry. This time of the year it gets colder, doesn't it? The heating's on, dries an old dog out me. So who has their headquarters in Stansted? Okay, well, it's the Spiritualist National Union, and no doubt lots of you would have either heard of it or been there. The reason I said Phil could go, I know that Phil was one of the people that studied there, Arthur Finley College. You've got Stansted Hall. It's a big headquarters. It's a main teaching centre of the SNU, and SNU is an umbrella organisation for many of our spiritualist churches all over the UK. And actually, there was some great people that have done some great work there over the years. One of my favourites was Gordon Higginson, who was president of SNU. That's right, Marcus, SNU Teaching College. Gordon Higginson was friends with my grandfather, and back in 1982, they founded the Life After Death promotions with Doris Stokes, Jesse Nason. That was Gordon Higginson and my grandfather. He was president of the SNU for a number of years, and they really did do some fantastic work. Now, I'm not a member of the SNU myself. My church down in Wimbledon is independent and now a member of United Spiritualists, which in its terms is another umbrella term, but they're certainly recognised as one of the biggest SNU, one of the biggest organisations and ambassadors for spiritualism in the UK. And I encourage those of you that don't know anything about these to go off and do a bit of research yourself. You say you don't have to join any of them. You can have your own understanding. It's what forms your principles. But in the same way I went through the principles of Wimbledon Spiritualist Church, the SNU have principles, and those principles are then inherited by all of the churches which are part of the SNU. And there are other organisations. The Greater World was an organisation my dad worked at for a number of years. He was the general manager at the Greater World, which is a big Christian spiritualist organisation. You've got the United Spiritual Fellowship, otherwise known as United Spiritualists now. And there are lots of different organisations that look to bring people together. Last month we had a guest on Philip Solomon, and Philip Solomon was a minister of religion within another Christian-based spiritual thing. But certainly outside of the UK, the SNU and its headquarters, Spirit Stansted Hall, it's seen as a bit of a HQ and a map pin for people and spiritualists. Okay, so I've named other spiritual. If you want to drop any other spiritualist organisations that you are aware of, you've got lots of time for, then please drop them into the chat room. I'm obviously biased. I've spoke about Life After Death promotions and United Spiritualists, the principles of Wimbledon, but there are lots of others, and all of us are new Christian spiritualists, abounded by similar principles, and we're often not too far away off that beaten track of what it means. And at the heart of anything, spiritualists want to show unconditional love through service. They believe in a life after death, communication with people. Phil says the iconic Winifred Mowers from the Greater World. Yes, another great ambassador, did some fantastic work, and certainly around that Second World War era. Marcus Lupser, the Corinthians. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we've spoke a little bit tonight about different types of mediumship. And we spoke about physical mediumship. Now, I shouldn't have made the assumption, I suppose, that everyone knows what we're talking about. So what is a physical medium, or what is physical mediumship? What does it mean to you? You could give me a literal interpretation. People like Gary, my old mate from Mitcham Rugby Club, they'll be interested in what you think when I talk about the term physical mediumship, what that means to you. And then there are people like Phil Shaw, who I've said tonight is a fantastic physical medium. So people like Rose will understand this as well. But what do you all think? What do you all think? So what is a physical medium? Phil gives a big shout out for the College of Psychic Studies. We also study in trance with Ivan Northedge. Yep, again, a great place. So what do people think? What's physical mediumship then? Well, in simple terms, it's someone that can produce physical evidence of the presence of spirits. Now, you could argue that when any medium opens their mouth and says something, that is physical evidence of life after death. I think often within spiritual ones, when we talk about physical mediums and physical mediumship, what we're talking about is something else changing. So other than the human being, the medium opening their mouth and saying something, and interpreting or acting as that medium, it would be above and beyond that. So the medium perhaps allowing spirit to talk directly through them, or in some pretty incredible circumstances, direct voice phenomenon. You could argue that using things like the Ouija board, which requires some physical energy to help move the cursor or the planche, the Frank's box, the spirit box, all of that could be aspects of physical mediumship. But I think traditionally we're talking about trance and things that can be physically produced by a medium, such as ectoplasm, voice transfiguration, with the palette of the face and the medium can change. Yeah, Gary, absolutely. When you see a spirit, so to many extents, yeah, physical mediumship is when you can see something from spirit, and you can see that difference. Stasis, physical mediumship, is the way the medium takes and the physical change of spirit. Yeah, we talk about control and the various stages of control and trance. I do a lot of what I would describe as inspirational sort of talking, and even this show to a certain extent, where physical mediumship isn't necessarily involved, but I'm inspired by spirit to talk. To a certain extent, you could say that is an aspect of physical mediumship. But yeah, I think traditionally we're talking about trance mediumship, physical phenomena, physical changes. Wendy gives a shout out to the great Leslie Flint. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, folks. Okay, so we just mentioned a word there. Yeah, Julie would love to hear direct voice. So would I, Julie. Let's use 2021 and be there at the same time. Ectoplasm. So I just mentioned ectoplasm. Some of you have produced it. Some of you have seen it. What do people think of ectoplasm? You know, my first real understanding of ectoplasm was not within a traditional spiritualist upbringing. It was from the film Ghostbusters, which I loved watching as a kid. But what does people think? What is ectoplasm? What is it we're talking about then? So we just spoke a little bit about physical mediumship. What is this ectoplasm stuff that I've just been talking about that can be produced? Who produces it? What is it? Any ideas? I suppose, you know, a quick segue link would be you'd say, well, it's being produced by a medium, a physical medium, because we've just said what physical evidence of physical mediumship is going to be. But ectoplasm, where does it come from? So where is the medium producing it from? And what is it that they're trying to do, or is it that spirit are trying to do with the ectoplasm? Anyone got any evidence that they would like to share? Anyone been in a circle and seen it? I mean, there's lots of photographic evidence when you Google this stuff online. But Phil says substance used by spirit to produce physical phenomena. Yep. Nice little says what it does on the tin. Ectoplasm is produced out of the body by a physical medium who is giving the demonstration of materialization. So Dan Aykroyd is a spiritualist, isn't he? Yes, Wendy, I'd heard that, and I was told that part of his wanting to do Ghostbusters was to further that, and some of the terms used in there came from his understanding and inspiration. So, oh, there we go. Rich just told me that he confirmed it in an interview. So that's true. I'm glad you're still with me, Rich. I'm glad I haven't bored you yet, and you've put me on autopilot. It's always good to hear your voice. That's a direct physical phenomenon, but this one comes from Portsmouth as opposed to ectoplasm. Okay. Just a strange and wonderful, Richard, and wonderful. It's always good to hear your reassuring voice in my ear. So yeah, ectoplasm, and I say have a look online. When you see things from walls, yeah, it could be. I mean, in Ghostbusters, you used to see the ghosts. And I think Dan Aykroyd, the idea was that perhaps that what you were seeing was the silhouette of a spirit. That was the ghost. It was made of ectoplasm. Mediums that produce it out of their body, often through their mouth. Look at some of the photographs. It at times can almost look like a white sheet. Helen Duncan was a great physical medium. During the Second World War, produced some brilliant evidence of spirit communicators who UK government hadn't even confirmed had been killed in combat. Mary says she saw it as a white cloud coming from the solar plexus. Yeah, another fantastic bit of evidence. Phil said he saw it in Gordon Higginson Circle. So you have a look. Certainly, I've seen on Gordon Higginson. If you type in Gordon Higginson ectoplasm, and Colin Fry, I think there's some photographs there and a few others. Rose says it takes a long time to develop this ability. Yeah, again, great discipline, education, and investment. Medium work works very hard, and often with people all around the medium, perhaps acting as batteries and powerhouses, and stay saying there, yeah, spirit trying to form solidity, yeah, a solid form, show evidence of that physical body. And another time when we talk about transfiguration, what Phil Shaw and I try and do when we do our double dam is to Phil effectively surrenders his face to spirit to try and do things on his face. And there are various different phases of that. And some transfiguration mediums have been known to produce ectoplasm almost like a canvas over the face where spirit take that form. Other people have seen it as a mist. And that's probably as close as I've been to seeing ectoplasm, is in it sort of like a mist form. It's all around us, and it's all about changing. Okay. How are we doing for time? Anyone bored? Anyone already switched off? We still got people. I still got people listening. We're talking about the Second World War, weren't we, a minute ago? So now's a good thing to talk about remote viewing. What do people think about remote viewing? What is it? Who can do it? Julie says she's caught an infrared camera mist forming on its own. Well, that's pretty cool, Julie. We get the infrared cameras out in Wimbledon, I think, this year, and we get down to Richard's studio as well. Terry says she thinks it would freak her out a little bit. Yeah, I think if you wasn't expecting it, it certainly could. That's what most people did in Hollywood while watching Ghostbusters. So what do people think about remote viewing? Anyone heard the term remote viewing? What is it about? Wendy's saying great show. Thanks, Wendy. I'm glad that you're still here and you're not bored yet. So remote viewing. Good. Gary says it's really good. Great, Gary. Thanks, mate. Okay. Remote viewing. So Vari Kent used to sometimes call herself the accidental medium. She first told me about remote viewing, and she showed me some papers which had only recently been declassified. Her parents both worked for the Ministry of Defence during the war. And during the war, her parents helped the coalition, the Allies, with remote viewing to try and defeat the evil behind Nazism. Stace says she is learning loads. That's great, Stace. And the way that Vari explained it to me was the ability to not use your physical body. Thanks, Shona. Terry's doing a lot of remote schooling. Yeah, I think we've got that to come. We've got two little boys. I think there's going to be a lot of remote schooling over the next couple of weeks. Gary asks if there are good and bad ghosts. Yeah, I'll go back to that one, Gary. It's all about finish on remote viewing. Yeah, physically not using your eyes, but viewing remotely, or viewing with your eyes and then sending what you're receiving remotely. Stace says she's done remote viewing. It's where you can see the inside of people's houses and describe without ever seeing it. Yeah, that's another good example of doing it. Now, Vari's dad was parachuted into occupied France, where he spent some time living in and out of different accommodation with the resistance, and often spent a lot of time at night laying in fields in France, viewing physically with his eyes pilots in their planes about to go over as part of the Blitz in London. Now, wherever he could, he would look and physically describe what he could see, how many he could see. But he didn't have any communications equipment. It would have been too dangerous to use it and be intercepted. So he would remotely send everything he had back to his wife on the British mainland, who would give it to someone in intelligence in MOD to see about the numbers and where they were coming before it got onto the coast and we saw them. The other thing that he was able to do in those fields was to remotely view at times some of the intended coordinates for the bombing and some of the targets. Now, there is a brilliant show called The Crafty Tricks of War. Google that and you'll see it on YouTube. They talk about creating targets for the Nazis to bomb, building cardboard box towers in parks, setting fire to them, those types of stuff. And Vari Kemp would imply that her father and mother were part of a team of people that helped with that helped change the coordinates by remotely altering it, sending them to those cardboard box cities. Now, obviously, there was horrific damage and significant loss of life in the UK during the Blitz. But if just one of those bombs was dropped in an empty field instead of a house, then it worked. And I know that continuing, if you like your conspiracy theory, you talk about the CIA and other aspects of government employing remote viewers now to see if they can spy on the enemy. So something to have a think about. Ralph's definition of it, a bit like Stacey's, the ability to travel out of the body, view scenes in another part of the country world, and report back on what you have seen. Now, for those of you that know of a paranormal investigator called Malcolm Robinson, Malcolm Robinson is really fascinating bloke, does lots of interesting talks and conversations about all stuff. Recently during lockdown, he ran a bit of a remote viewing experiment on Facebook where he went and hid a key, which he didn't tell people was a key. He just said he hid an object, and he asked people to see if they could remotely view where the object was, what the object was, and where it had been hidden. And actually, lots of us got different bits of that. None of us were 100% spot on, but a few of us were quite close to doing that. So, yeah, great thing that people have to do. Alison says, I've heard something today on TV about remote viewing. So if you want to share that, Alison, please do. Right, going back to Gary's question, are there good and bad ghosts? Well, ghosts, spirits, I think it's that same thing. I'd ask you the question, Gary, are there good and bad people? And of course there are, and there's lots of shades of grey in between of mischievous and cheeky individuals. So yes, if your personality is what survives you after the physical change your body goes through, we call death, then if you were a good person, you could become a good spirit. If you're a bad person, you could become a bad spirit. I think in the afterlife, without the shackles of the physical body, plus with the benefits and wisdom of everyone else in the spirit world to educate you and evolve you, you're not necessarily the same type of bad. But I think if you were a bad person, particularly if you're a really bad person, first person that's going to judge you is you, your higher self, and the ability to create a prison of your own making. I also believe that really bad people would be kept from others. So, we just spoke about Nazis and the evil behind Nazism. When Hitler died, there was no way he suddenly ascended into an angel on day one. Oh, well done, Hitler. You've done a lot of bad stuff. Do you repent? I don't believe it happened like that. I believe that that character, that individual, would have gone through significant retraining and education and philosophy, reprogramming, perhaps punishment. Now, depending on your view of heaven, as I said, I see it as a place of pure thought and pure love. What place is there in a place of pure love for a person like Hitler? Well, I think there's only one afterlife. So after your physical life and you finish your physical body, that's where you go. And it might be that there are many dimensions, many levels, many rooms. I mean, I very rarely quote from the Bible, but there's a quote from the Bible where Jesus talks about the house that his Father has prepared for him is a house with many mansions, many rooms within the mansions. And I think that heaven, to a certain extent, is like that. Be it different levels that you need lifts and mountains and rope bridges to cross into and up to, and different sort of levels. Whether or not heaven, because we've said it's not physically up, it's higher up. Perhaps there are places you can drop as well. I think that all of that is not for us to perfectly understand. But yes, I think there could be good and bad spirits. There's no such thing, in my opinion, as a particularly dangerous spirit, as in a terrible sort of bad person that has all this power to move freely between this world and the next. I think that's a lot of work that our archangels, our angels, our guides, all the various other people trying to help us and protect us do. And as a medium, one of the first things you learn, one of the first things that Mary would have reinforced in my circle was around understanding your guides and understanding your communicators, protecting yourself, the importance and the power of prayer to protect yourself, to show that through affirmations and intention what it is you're doing. That is to stop the negative or the darker spirits. Shona says, can you choose to think positive so that bad spirits won't contact you? I didn't see that question come in, but yeah, that sort of goes into exactly what I was just talking about. I believe that light is effectively more powerful than darkness. In a very dark room with dark energy, as soon as you turn a light on, the darkness is extinguished. So I stand for love, light, and truth, and anyone else that does will extinguish darkness. Now, the darkness doesn't go away. It's extinguished. It moves and it goes further away. So I think you can keep more negative or more darker energy away. I think that they can be educated and you can evolve. I don't think time necessarily means the same thing as it does right now on Earth. So, it's going to take a long time for them to make up for what they can have to do. And they might not be able to do it just in the afterlife. We did a show on karma. We talk about the concepts of reincarnation and working off that karmatic debt. So I think this year there's going to be a special on Spiritual Psychics TV about reincarnation and karma and things like that. So there's an opportunity there. But yeah, bad spirits, certainly cheeky, mischievous ones, they're up there with the good ones. And it's the personality that comes through. But there is, I believe, no true harm that can come from the spirit world that's not invited. We are powerful, and light is very powerful. Our guides are incredibly powerful. It's all about protection, standing for the right things. And that's why as mediums there are lots of disciplines about not doing things spiritually that you wouldn't do. You wouldn't operate machinery or drive a car under the influence of alcohol or drugs. It's exactly the same for spirits. I'm just going to cough. It was a powerful cough. Even knocked off my video for a sec. Sorry about this, folks. Okay, so what'd you say, Richard? Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the show, actually. If there are more questions that people wanted to ask me now, then please do. So Gary says, I always wondered if a bad ghost could visit. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully I've answered your question there. Any other questions, folks? Otherwise, there's a couple of other little seeds I can plant. Okay, there's a couple of things I also wanted to let you all know about happening over the next couple of days. So just while you're bringing up your questions, I'd like to tell you about my mate, Bill Hughes, very talented spiritualist medium that's going to be giving a demonstration of mediumship tomorrow night from 8 p.m. So do check out Bill. That's 3 readings with Bill Hughes, a wonderful demonstration of mediumship, Saturday at 8 p.m. And every Saturday you'll have a demonstration of mediumship on Spiritual Psychic TV. Do check it out. But yeah, great medium. And Sunday morning, live from Women of Spiritualist Church, it's our divine service. And in fact, it's with me. I was trying to think who the medium is. I'm the medium this Sunday, so do come and check me out. And Mum and Dad from Women of Spiritualist Church every Sunday morning from 11 a.m. We've been streaming our divine service at Spiritual Psychic TV. There'll be an address, perhaps a reading, some mediumship, and an opportunity to bring the community together. But that's a divine service with Women of Spiritualist Church, Sunday from 11 a.m. And it'd be lovely to have you with us. My own page on Facebook is at Ash Robinson Medium. So if you have the time to find me on Instagram, on Facebook at Ash Robinson Medium, always lovely to build up a nice community of friends and family as well. And hopefully you've now subscribed to Spiritual Psychic TV. Yeah, it has gone really, really fast, doesn't it, Wendy and Phil? There was me saying, oh, I'm not sure if anyone's going to be around and wants to talk about philosophy today, but I'm really pleased we've had the opportunity to do it. Jim said it's very entertaining and inspirational. He's thoroughly enjoyed it. That's lovely, Jim. Thank you to you, sir. Gary says, really great night, Ash. Thank you. Thank you, mate. Great that you've been able to join us. Alison says, very interesting. She's enjoyed it. Thanks to Ashley and Richard. Stace says, thank you, Richard and Ashley, for another great show. And I'd be interested, have you enjoyed this sort of format, me going through the different seeds? June says, wow, it was a great spiritual refresher course all ready for 2021. Yeah, have you enjoyed this format tonight, folks? I've sort of tried to go back and look at some of the different things we spoke about, make it a bit more interactive. Do let us know. You can comment on this feed up till it finishes. Drop us a line in the Spiritual Psychic TV fan page on Facebook or my own page. I'm planning what I'm going to do throughout the year. going to have some other guest mediums and to do some interviews towards the end of the month. I'm hoping to have Kate May on the show, if that's okay, Richard. Talk a little bit about astrology and spiritualism. Mr. and Mrs. B said learned lots, thanks to Ash and Richard. I think Malcolm Robinson, I mentioned him. I'm going to get Malcolm Robinson hopefully on the show again, Richard, if that's okay with you. Malcolm, no relation to me, but set out in the 1970s to basically disprove spiritualism. He formed Strange Phenomena Investigations, and it was through his investigations he said, you know what, I can't debunk this. It turns out there is a life after death. Ended up becoming a spiritualist. He's a great ufologist as well, done some brilliant research into other paranormal things. So yeah, I'm landing this all on Richard's lap straight away, but hopefully that will be okay, Rich. Mary Dixie, great format tonight, Ash. Thank you. Lovely to have you. Richard, sorry, sir. Kelly says, thank you, Ash and Richard. Big love to you all. And I think it feels like we've got a natural end now. Rather than me go into some more questions, there's been some love and great energy. Rhonda's liked the format, which is also really good. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there. Petney says, thank you for enjoyable, good format. Planted many seeds. Thanks, Penny. Thanks for joining us. Gary says, relatively new to this, learned so much. I appreciate, and it's great to be able to share things that have been downloaded to me, things that I continue to learn. And I often plug my old pal Ralph Steadman, because he's just with me right now. I've great evidence that it's him. It's not just someone claiming to be him. And him and his guides, the committee, they work with me in the same way they work with hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. There's lots of help available to us from the spirit world, if we can. Now, I mentioned Gary's wife, Lisa, and if people are able to send some love, some light, some healing, it'd be very much appreciated. I know she's got some pain in her shoulder at the moment, but she is going into hospital on the 9th of Jan. So what a great way to close the show by saying thank you to you all. And if you wouldn't mind just thinking about the energy that we've brought, taking that energy, imagining it coming into a little bubble, like a beautiful purple sphere of love, of light, of healing power and energy. And then we are remotely sending that out to the parts of the universe that it's needed, especially people like Lisa, who will benefit from our healing prayers and thoughts this evening. So please continue to do that. Happy New Year, folks. It's been lovely to have you on the show tonight. Great thanks to Richard and Spiritual Psychics TV for hosting us. And thank you to all of you for joining the show. Here's to a healthy, happy, prosperous 2021. Let's go out there. Let's do it, because you've absolutely got it. Much love, friends. Take care. Good night. I've been Ashley Robinson. This has been Being Spiritual on Spiritual Psychic TV. Good night.